For me? I love it when people need cash.
You may know Byron Allen as the star of television's Real People and Comics Unleashed. But Byron Allen wears another hat. He's an entertainment tycoon, and he could soon become an NFL team owner. Lee Cowan has his Sunday profile.
It was a gray, cloudy day when we visited the Weather Channel in Atlanta.
So damaging flooding will be expected. Highway 80 could be closed.
But inside, the network's new owner, Byron Allen,
That was great. Thank you.
was beaming as bright as the sun.
I bounce out of bed. Let's go. Let's go. Let's play this game because it's nothing more than it's just a game. Let's have it, you know?
High stakes, though.
High stake. Look, business is a contact sport.
Allen seemingly came out of nowhere back in 2018 with an all-cash offer for the Weather Channel, which has provided content to us here at CBS News, among others. He paid $310 million, making him the first Black American to own a 24-hour mainstream cable news network. And then Allen announced this past week that he's also putting in a bid to buy the Denver Broncos, which, if that goes through, would also make history, making him the NFL's first black owner.
You're like a great white shark. You're just like swimming around.
I'm a great black shark.
There you go.
I don't sleep. I'm just always on the hunt.
When is enough, I guess, in terms of buying things?
When we're the biggest company in the world and there's no close second.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
The Broncos' purchase would top off a media portfolio that includes 36 TV stations, 12 cable networks, 6 streaming platforms, and several distribution companies, all under the banner of the Allen Media Group.
There are kids out there that look like me that when they see that, it's going to change their perspective of themselves.
He started changing perspectives in front of the camera first.
Make him feel welcome, would you? Byron Allen.
In 1979, he became the youngest stand-up comic ever to get one of those coveted slots on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
And my best friend is like half black, half Jewish. Abdullah Steinberg.
He was only 18.
Buys Afro Sheen wholesale.
While still attending film school at USC,
Byron Allen.
Allen was picked to be one of the hosts for NBC's Real People.
That brought back a lot of wonderful memories.
Byron, what memories? You just got out of high school.
Well, I didn't say they were old memories.
But Byron Allen wanted more.
When you learn the business side of show business, you can do and own and have all the shows you want.
He's been around Hollywood a long time, but he's not of Hollywood. His roots were planted a long way away.
That hydrant right there, that was my swimming pool.
Byron Allen Folks grew up in Detroit.
This was our first house.
He wasn't poor, but he wasn't rich either.
I can remember he was playing executive when he was like 5 and 6 years old. He had an office, and his office was in the basement.
That's his mom, Carolyn Folks.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You have like a desk and a...
Yeah. And I sat at the desk and I just talked to imaginary executives.
I don't know where that came from.
As a kid, he had an exhaustive reservoir of ideas to make money, like collecting wayward shopping carts and returning them for cash.
I was the king of collecting grocery carts. I dominated that business.
His mom remembers another.
Have you forgotten about the worm farm?
Oh, boy.
You had a worm farm?
Yeah, I had a few businesses that didn't go the way the business plan. It looked good on paper.
And it's tough being the mother of a worm entrepreneur.
His first shot at earning real money came at the Rollercade roller rink. Allen's grandparents built it in 1955, back when a black-owned business didn't interest many banks.
My grandfather, he couldn't get a loan. He built this place brick by brick. It's exactly what I had to do with my business. I had to build it myself, brick by brick. Even today, African Americans do not have access to capital that's not predatory, so you can be in business.
Even as a boy, almost every black family he knew, he said, worked for someone else. What Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously called the other America.
But it is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. The fact is that millions of Negroes, as a result of centuries of denial and neglect, have been left bootless.
That injustice got wound pretty tightly into Allen's DNA. King was assassinated just a year after making that speech. His mom says even at 7, Allen took it pretty hard.
How is it, as a mom, do you explain that to a son?
There are no words to explain because you're trying to wrap your brain around it yourself.
The idea of equal financial footing for everyone grew more and more obvious for both of them the older they both got, even after watching prominent black Americans make it all the way to the top.
When Berry Gordy sold Motown, and I understand why he sold Motown, I was in the back of the room and I started crying. I started crying because I felt like we, as African Americans, we have to own something. We don't own anything.
Which is why, in the early 90s, Allen and his mom joined forces to own their own entertainment show, Soup to Nuts, even syndicate it themselves. No more middlemen.
When I literally sat at my dining room table and I called all 1,300 television stations.
Every single one?
Every single one of them, probably 50 times each. And literally, after about 40 or 50,000 no's, I was able to squeeze out 150 yeses.
There was no other way to go at that point in our lives. It's about taking risks and just moving forward and seeing if something will work. And we didn't see that it wouldn't work.
Bit by bit, he ended up in nearly every market in the country.
This might be an indelicate question, but how much is it worth now, the company?
It's definitely worth billions.
Billions?
It's definitely worth billions. I
company
wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't sell it.
You wouldn't sell it?
No. I don't want to sell it.
That's because he sees it as leverage, not only to increase black-targeted programming, but to demand a seat at the table for black-owned programming, too.
Do we or do we not have economic inclusion? And the answer is no. We have to correct the greatest trade deficit in America, which is the trade deficit between white corporate America and black America.
When media giants like Comcast, AT&T, and what's now Charter Communications refused to take his channels, well, he filed multi-billion-dollar lawsuits against them, alleging racial discrimination. In the end, all the suits were settled, and several of Allen's channels were indeed added to their lineups.
I used the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Section 1981, and it was put on the books to protect the newly freed slaves, to make sure that we as African Americans, we had economic inclusion.
And there's some people who say that that's sort of bullying, that that's a bit of a bullying tactic to get your product out there. What do you say to that?
It's real simple. If it's okay that we don't have economic inclusion, then you're the problem. You call me the bully, I call you the racist perpetuating economic genocide.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly welcome Byron Allen to the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Last October, at the age of 60, with his wife Jennifer Lucas and their 3 children by his side, Byron Allen finally got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It's fitting, in a way. He spent years trying to break down barriers to equality that were, in fact, just as hard as concrete, and now there he is, in concrete, right next to another Titan and his hero, Johnny Carson.
This is one America. This is everybody must succeed. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, everybody must succeed without exception. No exception.